Can't wait.
How did Applebee's get on the bottom of the bag, Dave?
They sponsored it.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
We usually have a couple
All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll call our meeting to order. Sorry. Good evening. We'll call our meeting to order and rise for the pledge. Oh, it's right. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 13th, 2025 retreat agenda as presented.
Second.
Great. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the agenda? All in favor of approval, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carried. We have an approved agenda. Thank you. And that brings us to the meat and potatoes, our presentation on strategic plan goal setting.
All right. I'm going to pass those that way. And you can take those. So tonight we are working on goal setting for the board. In full disclosure, I used AI for a portion of this, so we are using Gemini as administrative team, and so we recently upgraded to the Gemini Pro version, I think it is, and so anytime you open anything on your computer, it says, hey, Gemini can do this, and so when I went to the Google Slides, it said it can generate slides based on the data in a gem that I'd been using, and so that's where this picture came from. And then it also provided, this whole slide was created by Gemini based on all the data files that I had been uploading to it. The presentation that we worked with on the 15th of September and some other Raymond files and just things that we've been working on. This is what it basically generated. And I did obviously go back and vet them to make sure that it made sense, but we are here to align goals with the strategic plan's 5 pillars, prioritize clear, measurable, and achievable objectives, foster a culture of continuous improvement and accountability, and engage stakeholders for successful goal implementation. And you do have the hard copy there. So just when Dr. Lawson and I met, we just talked about what tonight might look like and just kind of a review of the strategic plan and the critical pieces there. So back in August of last year, not this past August, but the previous one, the board approved ultimately this document and this timeline around the strategic plan. And the idea is that it was in yellow, we're designing it and doing audits, and then when we feel like we have a pretty good idea of where we are and how we can launch that plan, that's where it shifts into the green. And so there's been a tremendous amount of work, a lot in the top left corner there, academics and programs, teacher clarity, not on this document, but within teacher clarity and effective instruction is all the curriculum work that we've been doing. And so that'll be forthcoming to a board meeting in a little bit. in the next couple of months here. But there's quite a bit of detail that falls under each one of these components here, and that's why we said we were going to take at least the year there to really dive in and assess everything that we are doing and have been doing, what's working, what's not, how far along we are, and, where do we have strengths, gaps, weaknesses, and all those sorts of things. So from all of that work, we narrowed it down a little bit further. Our mission, Alpena Public Schools, in partnership with our community, teaches and challenges all students to become lifelong learners and productive citizens. That's at the top. And then our foundation is built on continuous improvement through data, communication, monitoring, and support. And then we've got each of the pillars there, the 5 goal areas. So what I did, I took our September 15th presentation with all the data that was in there, Raymond, a couple of other files, and I put it in there, and I used, Sarah shared with me an example of a school district, Prince William, that has a very robust strategic plan process with a lot of nice pieces that we're eventually going to get to, like a district data profile that touches on all the different demographic information and pieces that we talked about in our presentation, but we don't have an official publishable profile, but all the way down to creating goals. So I asked it to use that as a model for proposing Board of Education goals that are appropriate with the board setting goals for each of these 5 areas. And so just working with AI, it spits something out. You have to go back and review it and make sure it's reading everything correctly. And ultimately, this is what I've got it whittled down to. I am calling these examples of board education goals versus my recommendation or not, just because these would be your goals. But I think that's where we're heading of, we want to see some examples and then make that decision. So the timeline in this process is, we go through this, we've then got tonight to work, and then the workshop meeting next week, and then ultimately October's regular meeting is the following week. And if we want to work towards that, of approving, all of these goals by then, we certainly could do that. If we need more time for the other pillars or, anything we talk about here, we have that ability to move into November as well to determine some of those goals, or actually whatever timeline the board sees fit. So, yeah.
If we went with these, are you saying use the M step?
Yeah, I'll show you what I'm talking about. We would want to detail that out exactly, but I've given you some examples here. So goal number 1, overall proficiency. By the spring of 2030, increase the district-wide percentage of students proficient or advanced on state assessments by 15 percentage points in mathematics and 10 percentage points in ELA from the fall 25 baseline. What I've got here is right off of my school data. This is all students in those grade levels. So again, we would look at it and say, this is the report that we want to use to set that baseline data. So you can see it's by grade level. This is ELA on that first chart. 3rd grade is from 38.9%. The previous chart said proficient or advanced. I would say we'd want to do proficient and advanced. So 38.9% 3rd grade would be our baseline. We could do it by grade level. You could combine all of them into an average. I've reported that to the board in the past, where we just take the average of the average, which is not, I think a statistician might find some issues with that, but we're looking at trends, not that specific mathematical calculation. So the next page you've got there is then the math numbers. And the difference between the 10 percentage points for ELA and the 15 for math. It's because you can see our proficiencies in math are lower in general than our ELA proficiencies. So kind of flipping back for those of you watching the screen, I apologize. By going back to that, we want to put in an interim checkpoint system too in these goals, because your goals, should you adopt them, would be 3 to 5 year goals longer term. And then we would review the progress each year after the state assessment results are released, with the idea that we're heading in the right direction. And if we're not, obviously we need to dive deeper and see what's working and what's not. The other thing on this page, goal 1.2, equity. By spring of 2030, reduce the proficiency gap on assessments between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students by 50% in both ELA and math. I didn't have a clean way to show those numbers where they are right now. But, for example, if there's a 10-point difference between third grade economically disadvantaged and non, we'd want to see it at 5-point difference, and then 2.5, and whatever. So we could, again, we would agree on how we would calculate that, and then how we would measure it going forward. It was interesting, I didn't include it, but I had a conversation with Gemini, if you can have a conversation with AI. So it picked up on our economically disadvantaged students are performing better than the state average for economically disadvantaged students. So that's a positive. And I actually went,
Well, I think we talked about that in one meeting. I remember that discussion, and that does seem like something you can pick up on. This is all bringing back to me some of the discussions we had about the test scores and how to sort of fairly quickly bring the district along a little bit. And so it seems to be quite clever, this Gemini.
yes, it is. because I said, it highlighted our economically disadvantaged proficiency rates, and I said, but what about the fact that we are performing better than the state average? And it was able to go back and say, yes, that is a positive point. However, as we saw, even though we are outpacing the state average, we are all still significantly below our non-economically disadvantaged students' performance. So we can celebrate that we're not here, we're here, but we still are this far away. And that's why it's saying you want to close that gap between your economically disadvantaged and your non-economically disadvantaged. And it does tie into attendance in the whole child. Our goal in the whole child goal statement is to increase student engagement. Well, attendance is a huge factor in student engagement, and we know we've got some issues to work out with attendance. And so, that is something we can work on, to improve, and we are, but we can really focus on reducing that chronically absent rate. And then hopefully that also closes the gap in proficiency as the students are attending more. So I didn't have an example like I did in this, but the idea is we have a substantial gap pretty much across the board in all grade levels and in all content areas between economically disadvantaged and non. And so the goal would be to continually reduce that gap, and we're hopefully moving everyone up, just economically disadvantaged, closing that gap. With the interim checkpoint, again, you'd be looking at annually analyzing state assessment, breaking it down like we did at the September 15th. AJ, you had asked if we had reported NWEA by economically disadvantaged. We do not, and we're working with NWEA right now because they don't have a mechanism for us to do that. So we upload a data file into NWEA, and it tracks the student, grade level, and those kind of pieces, but it doesn't track whether they're economically disadvantaged or not. So we're working to see if they can accommodate that. And if they can, wonderful, be great to have those comparisons between NWEA, Renaissance, and MSTEP and PSAT and SAT. And if they can't, we can still do that calculation and just be by hand, essentially, taking all the students that are and matching it to their NWEA records.
Just along those lines, what will be possible with our, I think it's called the standard assessments that we were working on, what I think had been called common assessments before. What will we be able to put that all into a program and press a button and have some of those things taken out? Like if we want to look at, economically disadvantaged versus not, we could look at that. Or if we want to, let's say, pull partnership people out and say, well, we want to look at these people. Stuff like that. We'll be able to do stuff like that?
Yes, maybe not just push a button, because these are, locally generated, but that is the idea, that we would be able to track every student, not just from one M-step to the next M-step, but multiple times throughout the year. And then certainly as we're pulling student results, we know who the students are, economically disadvantaged, whatever it might be. So we would want to tie all of that together, so we're tracking those key pieces throughout the year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the button thing was just my caveman
Yeah, no.
understanding of this process.
Yeah, but it's a great point. That's the purpose of the standard assessment system that we are defining, and we will, as part of our curriculum update, we'll go into depth on that, what that looks like.
How many goals can we have? Well, I'm just looking at this first one here, and I know that last time some of us got in a little bit of trouble for wanting to pull out, the lower scores or areas that were scoring lower. But what if we did the overall, like in goal 1 there, but then also maybe zoomed in on like 3rd grade? Because a lot of these, once you get behind, you're kind of behind, and it's hard catching up. What if we broke apart even just part of 3rd grade even, where we can really focus on that?
So I would see you and raise you one, because I was trying to find the right time to bring forward our pre-K data. We have a pretty strong picture of where our students have been coming to us before they even get to kindergarten, and the gap is significant. The trick is there now with a GSRP classroom, 2 of them, we do have some control over that. Obviously Head Start and any preschool anywhere else, we don't have much input on that. But we were kind of talking like, what does that look like for us to set those early childhood goals? And you're really bringing in AMA into that conversation. You're bringing in school success. School success is K-12. But when we'll look at that data in depth, probably the workshop would be a better place for that. But there are significant gaps in kindergarten readiness. And so 3rd grade, absolutely, M-STEP, that's the first time they're measured there. This Brigance data, the other pieces would be part of our standard assessment system that starts even earlier than M-STEP. And so I think, as we better understand that data, then we could add to or modify some of the goals.
Do we have any of that data?
We do.
Can we get some? It'd be interesting to see it.
Yeah, I can share it with you. And I can, give me 1 second. And I'll put it in the update too. Test by memory. Stacy, do you remember 39%? Was that what it was? 39% were ready for?
We tested for Roundup, we're ready, and then with the Acadian scores, it was more like 50% of all kindergartens were ready.
I apologize ahead of time for what you're about to see or not see. So just, I didn't have a chance to really make it look presentable, but if you look at let's go back to 22, 23. The number of students that were at or above, roughly 48% in kindergarten.
And this is when they're coming
When they're
in?
coming into you?
When they're coming
in?
into us, yeah.
Okay.
54%, a little bit better there, 50%, and then this most recent, 40%.
I can't say you did a bang-up job in 23, 24, did you? You went down.
Well, yeah, but remember, this is before they even get to us.
Yes, this is
This is
when they come into
entrance.
kindergarten.
No, I mean, this is great to see. Like, this
Yeah.
is, you know,
I'm saying, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. It's really nice to see these numbers because like I said, I feel like these kids get behind and you're trying to play catch up the whole time. If we can try to get them as early as possible and set a goal at some of these levels, you know, that might just carry right on over through the years.
Yep. And so, one of the figures is we weren't able to test everyone, so obviously we do want to get that full picture. And so, you got to work on getting that process. How much do you force someone to take this test when they're pre-kindergartners, kindergartners? Reports where it is fairly traumatic to be taken into a room and administered a test like this with an adult that you don't know. And so there's things to work out and to just kind of have in the context of what this test means. But these numbers are significant, you know, especially this latest round where 40% of those that we tested were showing that they were ready to start learning in kindergarten.
So since, I think, Monica, your question was about board goals, how could we address that with a goal?
So I think we would use the first grade because then at least we've had a year. But I think there's, you know, the message to the community, and this isn't to blame anyone, it's a statement of reality. Those gaps are there before the students show up. And we take them. We take all students, no matter where they are. And that's at any grade level, because there are significant gaps, possibly even bigger gaps, the older they get when they come to us. But that is not to blame anyone. It's just this is where they're coming from. So I think there's a real value to maybe just sharing those kindergarten numbers alongside of our goals for first grade, or, you know, something. Because if we, so let's see what first grade comes out to. If first grade comes out as 43% and our goal is, you know, half of the students are ready for first grade, we just have to manage that narrative in the community of we're not shooting for 50%, and none of us are. We're acknowledging the reality we are at, and we are increasing it step by step by step in full recognition of how they come to us as far as readiness and the amount of work it takes to close those gaps. So a long way of saying, I think we would use the first grade numbers as to set our goals, but I don't want to lose sight of the kindergarten numbers too.
As you were talking, it really put me in mind, I was thinking about we had a mental health board meeting this week, and, you know, as a government entity, it's really our job. We have to take everybody, and these are the folks we deal with. And in mental health, that's a unique organization because when people, when people come, it's often the very, very most difficult cases, and that's one of the reasons, the mental health system, the public mental health system, has a certain, immunity from, because they deal with these very, very difficult cases, because that's their job, is to take these most difficult cases, and as an educational entity, that's our job as well. We take everybody, so that is going, I think you make a really good point, that's going to be where we're beginning with, for many of them as they come into our system, and then thinking then, okay, what can we do for these folks? Challenging, but it's our job. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you putting it that way.
Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, Steph Piper would want me to say, and I don't remember the mathematical calculation, but kindergarten equates to 1/6 of their life, right? I think that's how it works. And
That's
so
close.
the amount of growth that should and can and often does take place is representative of, that is 1/6 of their life. So we do see unbelievable growth, even in preschool. And that's exciting to see. It won't necessarily show up in these numbers that we're talking about here.
Are these the same students? Did you test?
Can't hear you.
Sorry. Did we test in the same, so from 23, 24, kindergartners moved up to the 24, 25 first graders? Is that?
So it's the same group, but I don't know, what percentage tested last year compared to this year. But it is the same grade band of students that moved up. So it would be safe to compare them. Last year's
You're talking
kindergarten-
numbers are, right, like it looks like they dropped a lot. If you, is that, or are those not
So you
testing
could go
numbers?
from 24, 25 kindergarten at 50%. To 43%.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, when you said it went down.
Is that what you were saying we did?
Yeah, that's what I was like, you had a year, we went
Yep.
backwards.
Yep.
So
48
I'm
to
just,
51.
am I looking at that correctly, Dave?
If this is what you're doing, going from kindergarten the previous year
Yep.
to first grade, yes.
To first grade.
Yeah,
Okay.
of the next year.
Because even
Yeah.
22, 23 to 23, 24, you didn't do all that stellar.
Yeah. Much like,
Maybe that's where we focus then. I mean, that might be a good area.
yeah, I'd like to go through these numbers a little more carefully to, give it the same treatment we did with the other numbers, but certainly, yeah.
So we might express that like all kindergartners will recognize a X% increase from kindergarten, first grade in their, what's this test called again?
Brigance.
Brigance assessment or something like that. So instead of, just so we make sure, we're tracking if there's any kind of drop or whatever, we say, well, even if it's very modest, we say we want this much of an improvement from year to year on that. I think it's an interesting idea.
I think, yes, because 3 through, whatever, we would have that 10 to 15% increase. We would just extend it down to, and we even do start NWEA at second grade. I'm not as familiar with how that tracks at second grade specifically. But we certainly want to, grade level, I would be very comfortable saying we've got these goals, at K-12. On the opposite end of 10, 11, 12, it gets a little more confusing because they're in so many different subjects and classes, and it's not as neat and cut as it is where the M-STEP exists, the PSAT, the SAT exists. So at 12th grade, I don't know, I've never seen really good, other than post-secondary preparation, those kind of numbers. So you just have to kind of tweak these goals so that they're age appropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can clean this up, and certainly it makes sense to have a K through 10, 11, 12 academic goals by grade level.
Yeah, because I think when you look at this, and if I'm looking at kind of the way AJ was, I think it also shows, right, like summer slide, how much our kids lose. And so that could be something that supports the goal. Like, what are we going to do for summer work for a lot of these kids that have significant summer slides? Also, parent education about how to be ready for kindergarten and things like that, so.
Stacey, are you comfortable speaking to Brigance at all, or
Yeah.
anything that I left out or anything?
The top score,
Can you use the mic?
Come up to the,
you don't scroll up to the top. The top here is actually the Brigance score. That's the score that we, as kids enrolled, we screened them. That below there is actually the Acadians. So that's the first benchmark in February, or in September here.
Oh,
that
sorry.
we just did. Yep.
This one,
Yep.
got it.
So with the Brigance, we had a cut score of 61. So we have 222 kindergartners. We only were able to assess about 75% of that. So that 39% includes all the kids we didn't test. So I don't know that that's a truly valid score. That's like an assumption that the other kids didn't meet the cutoff, and we don't really know that. So we only assess 75%. And of that 75% of the total 222, only 39% were kindergarten ready. And then we also have been seeing with that age band, while they're not academically ready, their bodies aren't ready to learn either. So there's been a lot of energy and attention at that age to teach them regulation skills and getting them ready to learn. So it's all of it combined that's been the challenge for that group.
Yep.
And so I just want to clarify what I misstated. So when they're at the benchmark, above the benchmark in Acadians, that means they are essentially at the benchmark or above for first day of kindergarten skills as defined by Acadians.
Yep.
So when you look at exactly what they're testing, phonological awareness, letter identification, basic sight words, some sight words, and
Maybe at first grade.
maybe, at first grade, definitely. And reading fluency would be first grade. Okay.
And so at beginning kindergarten,
Right.
you would expect that reading skills and all of those are most likely not at the benchmark, but
Right.
No.
Considers a number of weeks of instruction when it's coming up with a score.
Stacy, can you reiterate what you said about not being ready?
So they're not meaning the benchmark of
physically.
being, oh, you mean
Physically.
with a behavior, essentially?
Yeah, it's behavior.
Yep, so, just the changes that we've been seeing with some of the behavior, that we experience at all levels, we've seen quite a bit at that lower level of just, they're not ready to come in and sit and listen. Their bodies are really busy. They might have trouble regulating their emotions, so that they need to be taught how to do that and the appropriate use of like coping strategies and things like that, because we're seeing a lot of squirrely behavior, I guess. So, it's that piece, and then it's also the academic delays together that make it a challenge. So it has to be targeted through both pillars for us to make the biggest impact. You can't work separately in those areas.
Have we seen a change in the average age of kindergartners? Has that?
I don't think so. Yeah,
What's the cutoff date
the cutoff date
for kindergarten? Like
well,
when you have to be turned 5?
They have the waiver through December 1st.
Through
so,
December
yeah,
1st.
well,
So we could get some 4-year-olds in there.
yeah, we have to
That's
do
kind of what I was
Yeah,
We
driving
can have
at.
4-year-olds in there that are just.
at the start of the year.
At the start of the year. They're going from I'm not going to say unstructured environment, but an environment that they had some sort of control over, to now an environment where it is structured, to where you have to meet certain goals and certain behavior points. So your first 6 weeks of kindergarten is doing nothing but teaching routine. And that comes from experience. That
Yeah.
comes from my experience. You are just teaching routines. Yes, I'm working on letter sounds, I'm working on letter identification, but I'm also teaching a lot of routines and appropriate behaviors.
Everybody sit on the rug. No, Danny, you need to sit.
And it's full day.
Yep.
Yeah, it is full day.
Whereas if they are not, were not in preschool, they are going from 0 to 6 hours.
To 6 hours.
And we did try to recruit a number of those kiddos who were scoring below that cutoff to go into junior kindergarten, but we were only able to open one of those classrooms again, as parents weren't on board with that idea, or there's transportation barriers or some other reason. So we ended up with one junior kindergarten class. But the goal was to screen everybody at registration to see, where everybody landed, so we could get those JK classes filled and provide that intervention as well. And then just have that information for planning for the rest of the kiddos too.
And so the teachers get, those children that you have been able to screen, they'll get the screening material.
we
So
gave
they
them to
know
the
where the
building.
gaps are in the children coming in. Because you are going to have some that come in that are going to be very high in the different skills, that are different kindergarten skills.
Yep, and like
So-
Dave said too, you have to be a little bit cautious because some of the kids were scared.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
we had a couple zeros, and we're like, that's probably not right. They just, didn't want to participate.
Oh, yeah.
So, but overall, we had good results with the screening, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll learn from that this year and improve on it for next year to get more kids screened. So,
I'm going to throw out an idea, and it's probably not going to go very far, but what if instead of bringing in 5-year-olds, why don't we set our sights at 6 for kindergarten instead?
Some
Are-
states don't even require kindergarten. Do we require, is kindergarten required in the state of Michigan?
it's not part of the compulsory education
I didn't
law
think so
until
either, not in
6,
Virginia.
yeah, so.
So I guess my question is, well, to my thinking, a corn plant takes 40 gallons of water when it's making an ear of corn. You can pour all the water you want to it. When it's a little spike coming out of the ground, 40 gallons a week is going to kill it. It's just too much. So rather than pouring into kids when they're not ready, let's not be in a hurry. Let's get them ready. I wanted to say physically. Is that the word you used, Stacy? Physically ready?
I mean, yeah, they have to understand how to regulate their bodies, and all those things are skills that are taught. And so kids would more incidentally pick that up in the past than they are now. Now we need to directly teach a lot of them because they're not picking it up from their environment that they came from before. But early intervention is super important because they are like little sponges too. You can make a lot of ground once you just have to work toward targeting where they're at and giving them the right interventions that they need, and really understand kind of why they're acting that way, because every behavior is a communication too, so you have to kind of figure out what they're communicating to get to the bottom of how to handle the strategy for intervention. So it's not a straightforward intervention either, usually, for kiddos.
AJ, something to think about too is fast forward to the other end of the spectrum. You move them back even a year, that can pinch them where they're going to start when they work on their senior year, and actually pinch them on, in theory, they could age out if they had a bad year and there's somewhere also where they're going to hit that wall. So you can't go to school until you're 30. Eventually you start hitting these walls. A little different in alt ed, but it's one of those things, you got to factor both sides of it.
What do you mean age out? And
So
you see-
eventually you hit the wall where you can't go back to school because you're too old, for lack of better words. So even if you move it back a year, and again, 1 year is not, that you're not gonna have the impact, but some of those same students might struggle along the way, might not earn enough credits in high school, might need an extra year, and all of a sudden they might be pushing right up against the wall where,
What is the top cutoff, Matt?
well, it's 19-ish, but there's also an age factor, there's also all that, so there's all sorts of different pieces in that. But it's just one of those things, you gotta look at the whole bigger perception as far as where it starts and where it ends, because ultimately you don't want to hit into that wall. Again, alternative ed's a little different, you have a little more flexibility, but they're not gonna be going to school unless they're special education or some different things. There is an end point for their education, so it's just something, again, not right or wrong, it's just one of those bigger, more holistic side of it.
Well, I think part of it too is, I personally kept my boys home longer because I believed kind of in that too, but there's also the concern of if they're staying home, are they actually getting what they need to come to school, right? Like, are they just sitting home on a screen? Also, a lot of parents use school for childcare, and we don't have enough preschools, so.
I guess that,
We see you're going to have the same problems if you, because when they turn 6, they're automatically first grade, and if they've never been in a classroom, you're going to have those same issues.
Are they automatically?
At 6 years old, they would be in first grade.
If they
Technically.
came in with no education, I mean, we could consider having them
We could-
be
you could
in
move-
kindergarten
you
as
can
kind of
ma-
like a retention, you know, but.
And then you're going to go, then you'd have the same thing, you know, oh, you're 6, shouldn't you be in first grade? You know, the whole dynamics of the other students in the classroom, too.
Yeah, you have to consider all that, yeah.
Why don't we try to grow the junior kindergarten? Why is there only one class?
So we did try to grow that. We had one class last year, and we were really trying to have 2 this year, anticipating the scores. And over the summer, we were contacting parents and, you know, trying to work with parents to get them to enroll in junior kindergarten. And I think we need to tell the story about junior kindergarten a little more too, because kids who aren't quite ready for kindergarten, it's a really great opportunity to build skills and then do kindergarten the next year.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what we see is that kids end up doing kindergarten twice anyway if they're not ready. So we'd rather them have a little more developmentally appropriate opportunity and then go into kindergarten. So, but this year we did try to grow it. Just some of the parents didn't select that option when we worked with them.
Have our preschool programs increased? I know every year, I feel like we've added some stuff. I think that's another thing is, right, the more preschools you have too, right, if they're.
Yeah, we have, our 2 preschool classrooms, I think, have a little bit of room, and regionally, there are some openings through Head Start, which is regionally, so I don't think all of the slots are filled, so, you know, parents, it's still an option for parents if they want to send their kids to preschool. There's a few openings still.
And I think a plug for AMA, because the preschool is where they do the work of supporting students and families and getting them ready. School Success, I believe, also does early childhood. Because, as Stacy said, they're not required by law to attend kindergarten. And so we currently kind of have that arrangement. If they come, we're going to serve them. From our perspective, if we say, no, you're not ready, we're potentially not partnering with the parent, and who knows where they go and what environment they're now spending yet another year in. There's just a lot of balancing there of, we need them to come as ready as possible, and there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, there are. Any other questions? All right.
Thanks very much. I was kind of curious, looking back to the sample, or I guess I'm kind of thinking of them as the serving suggestions you get on a box, you know. But are those, I guess, the kind of goals that Gemini's created here? Are they sort of mainstream enough type sorts of things that maybe we've already had discussions with staff about what it would take to achieve a goal like that? Because one of the things I was thinking, if you were talking about percentage points, you know, what would the staff say? Would they say, oh, no, we can't do 15, but we can do 12, or something like that? Yeah, we've had, not with 10 and 15% specifically, but our focus for a number of years has been increasing our percentage proficiency across all assessments. I think that's one of those, you know, the school improvement process that has been in existence in the state of Michigan and probably across the nation has been more on, we will show improvement, we will get better, we will, and it's when you start putting numbers on it that's somewhat foreign or uncomfortable to the educational world. Reasonably so, because of so many things we just talked about here. You know, we're just talking about the conditions which a student arrives at kindergarten. Well, those same conditions exist
all the way through. And so there's the art of teaching and there's the science of teaching. And so in my experience, prior, education tends to stay away from hard numbers like this. I don't mean 15 is a hard number to reach, but we generally make 10% of students will increase, and we don't talk about that proficiency. They'll just get better, they'll just get better. So I've been kind of a broken record. I would like to think that we are talking about increasing proficiency rates, and really the most informative piece is the student growth percentile data. How much are they growing? But these, if they're multi-year goals, I put these on the slideshow because I believe they were reasonable goals, or that they are attainable, because they do need to be attainable. And I wouldn't be surprised if we exceeded them in some areas, so.
I'm trying to remember the percentages that you've shown us in the past. Aren't they pretty flat?
Yeah, if you go back to like the presentation at the September, is that what you're talking about?
September, yeah, that was a month ago, Dave, come on.
Yeah. But with all the data files that I shared.
But if memory serves me, everything is pretty flat.
There were, when you broke it down by individual content from year to year, there were some good increases. When I say good, a couple of points here and there.
But you're talking overall 15 percentage points in 5 years. I don't recall a 3% hike anywhere in the data that you showed us over the last whatever it was.
Yeah, I would have to go back. I would agree with your statement. It's been relatively flat with some downward trends and some upward, and no 10-point jumps or things like that. There was one in 8th grade, I think, where it jumped significantly, but.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember if you even needed a 2% anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't come up with one, because you would have highlighted that.
Yeah.
Well, but I think this is good because it's a long-term 5-year, but then we're checking yearly. I mean, if after 2 to 3 years we're not seeing a trend, we know we're not headed in the right direction for our 5-year goal.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my point is, if we're not able to make a 3% jump now, you missed that 2 years, now you gotta make some 6% jumps. Well, we're not even making so that, I guess, was there's a question in that.
Yeah.
In that statement.
Yeah, and is it attainable? And are we setting ourselves up? If we adopt the continuous improvement model, we can set these goals. And with that interim process of we're heading in the right direction, after 2 years of heading in the right direction, we may say, well, 15 isn't attainable, it's probably going to be more like 10. But maybe at that point, we just set the bar over a multi-year period. If we are looking at this of, you didn't hit that mark, and now we need to, get rid of everyone, and, all of that, that's not continuous improvement. So I think, and back 2 years ago when we started talking about that, that was a major focus of understanding continuous improvement. We want to make sure we're setting a goal that we think we can achieve and measure it and correct as we go towards that or not. If it is simply you didn't hit it and now here comes the hammer, that's not a continuous improvement model. Now, if we get to 1 year we're heading in the wrong direction and there's no adjustments made, and the next year we head in the wrong direction, there's no adjustments made, and so on and so on.
Do you know where the hammer's falling?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but, look at the conversation of we didn't do very good between kindergarten and first grade. Well, that's not a continuous improvement phrasing of that. We really need, and it's just not me, I mean, this bubbled up from our teaching ranks, from our administrative ranks of, does the board understand that this has to be about continuous improvement? That's been the school improvement process since it started, was continuous improvement. Set the bar, head towards the bar, meet the bar, adjust the bar. So I am comfortable saying 15 percentage points by the spring of 2030, if we understand, again, like I said, if at year one, we are heading in the right direction, and year two, we're heading in the right direction, and at some point we realize, well, maybe 15 was beyond it, but we're heading in the right direction, I think that's a valid conversation to have with the board to say, maybe 15 was a bit too high. But if we are not heading in the direction, not heading in the right direction, and not heading in the right direction, and not doing anything about it, let the hammer fall.
Yeah.
Well, if we get 12.6 percentage points, I mean, that's very reasonable. I can't see where any of us would ever be, but if we're in the right direction, then, yeah.
Yeah.
In a sense, this is like budgeting, because you're guessing what you can do, and it's only ever going to be your best guess as to what you can hit and your best estimation. So, yeah, I would have no problem with that. Just you might exceed it or you might, fall a little short. But if you're, well, I guess the thing for me that I want to make sure I understand, it looks to me, as I look at the design and deliver, oh yeah, I can kind of read it now. Under deliver, there are those four little areas. It says implement, monitor and adjust, support and evaluate. And my feeling is, as we implement this strategic plan, that those elements we're going to do maybe even a little better than we've been doing them. So as we go forward, some of that flatness of that data, that's going to get attention a lot more quickly than it's been, because we have this in place. And to me, that's a real bright spot. That's why I geek out on this thing so much, because I feel like it's going to give our whole organization a new sort of energy in terms of evaluation as well as goal setting as part of that whole strategic plan. So
Yeah.
it'd be fair to say it that way?
I agree. Continuous improvement through data. We will be able to answer those questions with data. And, I don't want to say we don't have the data in the district. What we don't have is the system to collect it, analyze, and take action on it as a district. At the classroom level, they're knee-deep in working on individual student data and making those decisions, even at the grade level. But when it's, third grade at one building, third grade at another, that's difficult. That's the missing piece of how do we take all of that data and understand where we are. In any of these pillars, that data system is what we're building. And then I just lost my other train of thought with, standard assessments. That, from an academic standpoint, is going to have a huge impact on. We have lots of assessments right now that are going on. We're missing that mechanism of, the teachers may be analyzing that data and working with their students, but the grade level content area may not, is in many places, but it's not across the district. And the district doesn't have a way to then say to the board, we've got this goal, and our assessment data is showing us that we're not on the right path, or we need to bring more resources, or whatever it is. That's what this whole plan is building, and we'll be able to say, we're on track, and this is great, or we're not on track, and here's the exact data that's showing us that we're not on track.
I want to highlight real quick, in light of everything you just said, I had a really wonderful conversation with Katie Lee last week, I think it was, and she had just asked to have me come visit, and she wanted to talk about, cell phones were one of the things, but there were quite a number of subjects, and we got into this standard assessment conversation about that. And I think all of you, feel free. She has extended an invitation and said, let them know. I'll stay after hours. So if you're busy and you need to come after work, she will meet you there. Come singly, come in groups. But it was a great time to have some of the conversations about things that are happening at the junior high that maybe are just too much detail for a board meeting. We just, but I collected a lot of perspective and information, and I think any of us to have that discussion, because I would say, I think it's fair to say, based on what she told me, is that the junior high is really, I wouldn't say the tip of the spear, but is a real leader in the standard assessment development right now. And so getting a sense for how effective that's going to be going forward as part of that strategic plan, I was very encouraged after that discussion about the effectiveness of all of this. So There it is. I'll say it again, too, at some point, for the folks who aren't here, but I just thought that was really great.
And she's been sharing recently, too, of how proud she is of her staff, that they're talking the talk now in their individual department meetings and everything around standard grading, around grading practices, around assessment practices, around teacher clarity. It takes a lot, especially when you look at, 48% of our staff is in their first 5 years. Takes a lot to get that culture in place, and that's what she's been leading for sure. There are examples of it across the district, but I would say as a whole, the junior high's on the cutting edge of standard assessment, standard grading, standard pacing, and those pieces that we need to maximize student achievement. So, these are examples. We've got some tweaking to do. We can put together some numbers for kindergarten first. We'll look at second grade to see what we have, but I would be comfortable with these percentages and having a grade level, content level.
Because I think that there's a gap between second and third grade. That's a huge leap. But then again, at a data meeting I went to, there is a gap between first and second. So I think that that's something we need to look at. But I think the biggest gaps, in my professional opinion, is between second and third, and then 5 going into 6th, and then 8th going into 9th. It's just because of the different environments, the different things that are expected. But I think that's also something to look at, is where the gaps are between grade levels as you move from one grade level to another.
Sarah, do you think those 3 that you mentioned would be good places for us to look at, or set a goal there even?
That's what I was looking at that as something, but what you brought up, and after looking at the kindergarten and first grade data, because in my career, we were very data oriented. And I'm also looking at that gap between first and second. Kindergarten, and there was a gap between kindergarten and first too. But yeah, I think we need to look at the different gaps. But I think that the ones that I said, between second and third, and then 5th and 6th.
5th, 6th, and 8 and 9.
And 8 and 9. And it's only, and one of the big reasons that I feel is that they are going into a totally different environment. And that can cause some stress on your grade level, on your grading and your environment. So, but that it could be something that you could look at. But I do agree with Stacy that we need to get more parents on board coming in pre-K. And I know that it's scary to go into a class, you go into a room and have a stranger ask you, what letter is that? What sound does that make? Yeah. But that is such vital information to a kindergarten teacher going into the first couple of weeks of school. That is really, and we did it, and that was really that's how a lot of times I looked at how I was going to base my classroom when now I'm not saying all 24 of my students got tested, because the same thing happened. I'm not going in there with her, But yeah, that's also another thing, is to maybe have something in the beginning of the year. Just hand out ABC charts, things like that parents could be availed of. Title I always had some great freezes. That's the whole ABC calendar with the letters, upper lowercase, a picture, and then the word that goes with that, like A, apple, that. Just, if we could just provide parents something like that, that would also be beneficial.
And I think at kindergarten roundup, we typically give them
oh, good.
I forget what we call it, but it's
like a little packet of things?
Yeah.
Good.
Maybe
I'd be more than willing to help put those together, too.
Yeah.
Maybe a board goal could be something like X number of parents will be contacted or will be informed about this program, or X number of parents will receive a packet of such and such a nature to, just, and you could just make some board goals to make sure we're really zeroing in on some of that, vital pre-K stuff.
So later on, when we've got our family and community partnerships, engagement is one of the goals but it was suggesting we measure it by parent-teacher conference attendance and, other academic functions throughout the school year. So I can't see it without my glasses, but we might want to, take on an early childhood family engagement goal or something along those lines. And I think, we have partners in AMA and school success and,
Utilize our resources. Overall, I think the goals that you pointed out, because I still think that we need to look at it from this level. This is where we're at. We need to look at the entire district as a whole. And then it goes down to our administrators and then our teachers. And I know that the data meeting I was at, they are doing a deep dive into the data.
yeah.
So,
And I did just share the staff meeting calendar with you. So probably wrapping up all the data sessions right now, but, they often do talk, because I think you went to a staff meeting and they were talking about data there, so it's a good place to see it. Okay, can we move on to, and blending, crossing over, the first two pillars are relatively inseparable, or indistinguishable, I guess, because as whole child development takes place, student engagement increases, and they are interacting with instructional contents more. But what this generated was looking at our scorecards, so the school quality and student success index score increasing by 10 points from the 24 baseline, and so attendance is a part of that. And so this one was focusing on, improving the school quality success. There's lots of ways we could go about doing this. It seems to make sense that we focus on attendance because, that school quality and student success index also includes access to PE teachers, access to art teachers, and then advanced courses. Some of them don't apply all of the buildings, but attendance applies across the board there. Some, as we go up in grade level, attendance becomes more of an issue. So it might be targeting the secondary more than the elementaries, but every student that is showing up more at whatever grade level is going to improve our numbers.
We had a lot of emails on the buses. Is there another, bus situation where we don't have enough drivers again, or?
It ebbs and flows, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, a lot of individual situations occurring at the same time. And we are hiring, we've got people in the training process. That's a very long process.
Are you driving now, Dave?
I am not. Full disclosure, folks, I learned very quickly that I was not built to drive a bus. My mind works, and people will probably make fun of this, but I'm not a black and white person. And you have to be a black and white person observing the rules. My job exists in the gray area. And so I can support in ways, but not with children on the bus. Sorry. I did what I could. It took me longer than the average bear to pass that test. So that's where we're
Why
at.
was your staff in open laughter at that statement?
I know, they weren't even like hiding it, were they?
Yeah, no, there was nothing.
That's probably a whole discussion in itself. But we do have a number of drivers in training, I think 3 or 4 right now. Is it 3? I think 3. 3, but it's a lengthy process, it takes time. And then some personal issues that are taking drivers off the road. And I will just say, as part of our long-term facilities planning, transportation, looking at how we do this and adjusting routes and things is, we adjust routes annually, but we're looking at bigger changes in the future.
Yeah, and I think Monica's question was because it probably
The
directly
attendance.
impacts attendance, I would guess, when school buses are canceled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because don't they get an automatic pass?
Yeah, it should be, it's
Yeah, it's
excused,
excused if the bus doesn't pick them up, it's excused.
but it still
But they're
impacts
still
your
missing the
learning.
instruction, so, yeah.
Well, to channel my inner Eric Hansen, might we look at that particular question as an example of low-hanging fruit? Make sure the buses can run, and, but then again, that's not necessarily something we have to think about as, you know, as part of our board goal, because that, you know,
Yeah.
that's in, you know, in the district's hands. But as far as that board goal, this is an interesting one to me, because it seems like that success index score does have a number of tentacles, and so we have multiple ways of working on that score, and if one isn't going as well, we can attack something else, and, but that would seem like kind of an interesting one.
My
like
question, oh, you done it?
Yep, yep.
I'm sorry. It seems like quite a few of them, though, Dave, are in the 90s. So, does that, back that up, does that go to 100, or?
It probably goes to 99, I think, on the school quality index.
Okay, so to
Because
move some of
100
them is 10 points isn't going to be,
Correct. So maybe an overall, you know, yeah.
because you got some that really drag you down.
Yeah, and they seem to move. I mean, some of them have moved significantly from year to year.
Yeah.
So sustaining or improving might be a way to phrase the goal,
But an aggregate,
or an aggregate.
or an aggregate?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and/or aggregate.
Well, I guess, is it possible to move, like the Thunder Bay and the high school and Aces from where they're at? I guess they were higher.
So ACES is going to be
that's-
very unique, but the high school and Thunder Bay, and so the high school attendance is probably a pretty big factor in that number. And, you know, as I told you, there's some systematic reporting issues that we identified, so that should help improve the numbers, but also beyond that, there does appear to be an attendance issue at the high school as well, so.
You might call that, well, let me back that question up again. Is this assessment the same for all these years, using the same same baselines? Because like
For the most part, I think, in this grade, these years, I believe that the calculations all stayed the same.
okay, that was just because on some of
I'll
the
have to
data
double
you
check
showed
that,
us,
yeah.
it's been,
Yep.
here's where we had a change, so before I made a statement.
Yep.
Because like the high school and the junior high, like, high school is almost a 40% drop.
So 23, 24, that one is going to reflect the, all students that went to athletics or field
That-
trips.
that debacle.
They were marked absent in the state system. So that one's an outlier. But
Okay.
you still see 87, 70, 61, a decline
Yeah.
in previous years.
Well, even in the Thunder Bay, it's the same, it's,
What year did the high school go to a closed campus?
COVID, so.
oh, I didn't realize they were closed.
Oh, really?
What was, do you know what 17, 18 was before that? By any chance?
They might not have, you're talking about the index, or?
Back in the
Yeah.
day, however, I mean, it feels like in the
Okay.
You know, 60 and 40s, those are honestly probably outliers, again, like Dave was talking about.
Okay.
So I'll get a history on the index, because,
Just if we're gonna use it,
yeah,
as that whole
yeah,
child, number, I just,
yep. And, you know, we could also just break it down to the number of chronically absent students by division, grade level, whatever it might be, and then take the unknown potentially of the school index system out of the goal, because they may come along and change, you know, the system next year. And
Yeah.
did you ever present us what all is compiled into that number?
it's in the September 15th.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, because the state determined our targets, which is, you know, 37 and 49% for math and ELA, and these are all based on our percentage of students meeting those targets, not necessarily their proficiency levels. And it is very convoluted.
Okay. I just don't remember how it all piled together.
Yeah, and I didn't print that screen up, but there is attendance target as well, and it's not 100%, you know, it's a different number. And even at that, we're a percentage of that target.
So looking at this, I just had a question. I would imagine that, like, if we look at the, because we're looking at the school quality and student success index, not the overall index, right? And we look at that, at least that's what's
That's what,
proposed
yeah,
here.
yep.
So these are probably weighted so that, like, if we brought Thunder Bay and AHS up 10%, that would be heavier than the elementary scores, because it would be weighted because of the number of students? Would that be fair to say, or not?
Each building is calculated by the state individually. So are you saying it would bring our overall, or it would bring the overall for Thunder Bay up?
Oh, I was wondering if we brought that Thunder Bay score up, you know, and the high school scores up, let's say we brought them both up 15%, would that be sufficient, considering, as AJ said, a lot of our elementaries are already in the 90s?
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to make sure that we wouldn't be asking ourselves to do something that statistically would be too difficult, you know, but.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
But that, you know, as long as they're, you know, weighted enough that would really pull them along. Or we could just set a goal that's you know, if we can't hit 10, you know, maybe 7, you know, we don't need to use, you know, necessarily neat numbers. They can be wherever they need to be.
2.45.
Yeah, right. But anyway, that was my thought about that, just generally. And I like the idea, if we're really focused on attendance, let's pull that out, and we could look at that specifically. But the thing I thought was neat about this is that there are, it sounded like there were other factors like availability of certain kinds of staff and programs. And I was wondering if that might explain some of the fluctuation in some of those scores. So maybe that would be a good thing to fold that in there to make sure we don't drop the ball on any of those as well.
Yeah. Along those lines, so access to advanced placement courses, that is factored in there. And so anywhere, there's 5 components in that school success, and anywhere where it doesn't apply to the building, it's not factored into that calculation.
Right.
So by nature, the elementaries have less going into that ranking than the high school, junior high do, and ACEs. And access to AP classes changes on what we offer. And there have been years where we offered 2 or 3 AP classes, and then, I don't know if we ever got down to 1, or, yeah,
I think of us having one of that.
yeah. But it does fluctuate from year to year, semester to semester. So, to me, attendance seems like a clear-cut way that we can address across the district, and we can track across the district, and it's probably easier than relying on the index system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in high school, they've already been digging into the chronically absent kids, even though percentage-wise it's still pretty small right now, because you could track it.
Okay.
And chronically absent means 180, 19 days absent for a school year.
Oh, that's a lot. I mean, so,
Lot to miss.
because that's not counting sports, right? Or-
Correct.
I mean, it did this one year, because that
Yeah.
was a screw-up, or is it counting sports?
Usually, I think they take that out of it because if they're excused.
Right.
This is the kids that just, they might be excused, but there's just not, it's not a school reason.
Yeah,
Because you could do things, you know, you could do like suspensions and all those, but those are school reasons for it. But still, that's 3.5, that's almost 4 weeks. It's a lot of time.
So it's 90% is the cutoff of days scheduled. So it's roughly 19 days.
You know where those kids are bumping up against it now, what's this, a 6-week thing somewhere in there?
Somewhere in there.
So if I'm flagging those kids, say, hey, by the way, this is what we have.
And I'm arranging school success to come because they do a tremendous amount of work around attendance and support for the families and students. And so I'm hoping to have them, Dorothy has said she'd be willing to come. I just need to walk her through what I'm hoping to have her discuss, or what you are hoping to have her discuss. So she'll be here for the workshop to kind of dive deeper into not only our numbers, but what we're doing right now to address it.
perfect.
All right. Personnel. And so by 2030, increase the district's overall Raymond employee engagement mean score. And that's sort of redundant. Well, that's two things. There's a mean score, and then there is an overall percentile. So this would be, the 50th percentile or higher. So I put in parentheses there right now, our overall mean from last year's full Raymond survey was 3.76 out of 5. That put us at the 26th percentile, and that was as of December 13th, 2023, which that was last school year, right? It was 23, 24. No, 2 years ago. Sorry, yeah, we're in the third year already. So trying to get above that 50th percentile over the next, until 2030. And so this one would be putting some resources in, because if we were going to do an interim checkpoint, the pulse survey is, actually, we would want to do, I think, the full survey again and a pulse survey. So that would take care of the next 2 years. I think it was around $13,000, $14,000 for the 2 surveys. I feel like it was well worth it. It's consistent, valid, trusted, and we have been able to take some action steps based off of the data. So,
I like it, that 50 percentile, that's a bold goal, but if we're feeling, like we really have actionable things that we can do, then, yeah, let's do them and see what happens.
okay.
Cool.
And then also under personnel, by 2030, increase the one-year retention rate of all new staff to 90% through implementation of a comprehensive multi-year induction and mentorship program. So when Michelle and Mary presented, I forget the turnover rates, but we were hiring people and they were leaving within the first 6 months. It's gotten a little bit better, but we identified that as something we need to improve. Not only induction and the mentoring, but also our hiring process. Are we screening candidates and really figuring out if they're going to be the right fit or not? Those are examples of things that are already underway, but then setting a target of 90%. Michelle's comfortable with that, so.
What is that number right now?
Don't know if you have that off the head. It's low. If you go back to, what was that? That was September when you presented too.
Yeah, we lose
Yeah.
at least 50% of our hires each year.
But that includes IAs and
Everybody.
custodials.
Yeah. And you do have, it's the HR and finance report. If you go back, you can scroll down. There's a couple of slides with the number of hires and how many had left. And it's got a total down at the bottom.
Are we having success with the exit surveys?
The exit surveys, we're making progress on that. But
Okay.
again, only certain people are filling those out. So it's a data point, but it's not enough of a data point. One of the changes that we just made a couple weeks ago to help with onboarding is that we start all new hires on Monday instead of starting them randomly throughout the week. So now they come to HR, they start at 8:30 at HR, we go through a bunch of stuff with them first, and then they go out to their position. So the principal or wherever they're going, if it's food service, they actually start more in the middle of the day, which allows the supervisor or principal to spend more time with them. They're not starting at the beginning of the morning, walking in, not knowing, and we've already handed off a bunch of stuff to them for training, make sure they can log in, all of those types of things, so they're a little more prepared. So I think we're in week 3 of that, three or 4.
Great, thanks, yeah.
Hey, Michelle, do you email the exit survey then? Is that how they get it?
Christy actually calls them
Oh.
and emails them, and she tries before they actually are done with their employment.
So you try doing it over the phone too then?
We try like multiple ways.
Gotcha.
Anything further on personnel? So family and community partnership, I think there's a opportunity in engagement that we already talked about, but communication and trust by 2030, increase the percentage of families who strongly agree that the district builds trusting relationships and communicates effectively by 15 percentage points as measured by an annual family and community survey. We've got a variety of surveys. We could make one specifically for this purpose. We did just send out a communication survey. We would need to find some reliable tool for defining a trusting relationship and getting feedback on that. But my thinking is, with the amount of time and energy we're putting into finding out how to communicate better at all levels with our employees and our students and families, I think we're in a good place. It said 85% right now believed that we were based off of parent perception data. But of course, it was saying 85% strongly agreed that the school had a positive public image and some of the other questions there. Lost my train of thought, but we could certainly design a tool to measure that, and 15% percentage points over the next couple of years seems reasonable. And then as we administer, we've got surveys that we do administer annually right now. I believe this week the parent perception data survey is open to families. Certainly when they come to parent-teacher conferences, they fill that out. That's one we've been using all along, and every now and then we just throw out quick surveys for different reasons to collect information from all of that. I think we can put together a pretty good picture. And then the engagement, this one again focused on attendance at events, but maybe there's a better focus with our early childhood. Then one trick here would be, we do track the percentage that attend parent-teacher conferences, and the individual teacher has a list with a name next to it. It's tracking that second event of a parent that then goes to something else. How do we keep track of that? A little bit of a logistical issue, but we could certainly take attendance numbers at each of these events and track, are they increasing, decreasing, those kind of things. Generally, though, our parent-teacher conference participation is pretty strong.
Well, having attended some of the curriculum nights and things like at Lincoln and Ella White, Wilson, I know that we do have them sign in as they come in, or we walk around and take an actual head count. So that's good data
Yeah.
to have for those particular nights.
And let me just clarify our parent-teacher numbers. Because our teachers go to great lengths to connect with our families at parent-teacher night, we have very good responses. You know, those that come at the scheduled meeting, I'm not sure exactly, but our teachers then reach out to them by phone if they didn't, or they make other arrangements for them to come in. A little bit harder to track at the high school, because each teacher has their lists, but.
For like the grade schools, do all the classes send home their Friday folders and have parents sign it at the end of each week?
We do have Friday folders. They do go home.
I don't think they,
Yeah, not as
I mean, I just
significant.
know like with my kids, I have to go through all their work, go through everything,
Yeah.
sign it all. I mean, that'd be something, no, probably hard to track. I just, then you know the parents are looking at what they're doing.
Yeah. I do know they have Friday folders and they go home. I've had to sign things, but I don't know that that's widespread.
I always had a hard time trying to get it back and get it signed, or even get the folder back, or even after 3 weeks, the same stuff is still in there that I put in 3 weeks ago, so, but. As a teacher. No, not as a, I was a good mom. No, as a teacher. But, there is I know that teachers communicate other ways. I had a web page in our school. We each had to fill one out. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that I would call, and I know they're doing it.
For different apps.
Different apps. The Dojo app is a new one that we is it Classroom Dojo? What they put in?
We do have, yeah.
There's a bunch of them that you can use, that different teachers can use, and a lot of parents will communicate through that. I never used it, but I've heard that other teachers that I've worked with have used it, and it was very successful with them.
And we are, as part of our communication plan, trying to find those data points that we can track. Facebook, unfortunately, is pretty easy. You can see how many people interacted with it. I'd like to cut that number in a third if I could. But anyway, and Classroom Dojo, and there's a couple of others that we use. But we're just trying to figure out how to track that better to make, more use out of it so that we can know if it's making a difference or not. And you never really know. Just because someone opened something doesn't mean that it worked and that they read it and that, so. But I do think this is a big area, because even at that before school age, all the way through, parent education, community education is critical to our success. And, we try, but we got to keep trying to figure out how to, teach school. That's what we first weeks are about teaching school. This is how we do things and everything. But, I would throw myself into this. Parents sometimes need support. You do need to check those folders. You do need to stay on top of it. And if you do, your life and your child's life is going to be easier and better. As educators, where is that line for us, crossing it and saying, for instance, you're not ready to come to kindergarten, we'll see you next year. Not saying that's not a valid thing, but where is that line where we cross over and say, parent, you are not checking your child's homework, and we need you to come in and sit down and...
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
I like the idea of just getting them on campus, having them attend, academic events, conferences, student-led conferences, anything like that. Just get them in the building, and then you can, once you've got them there, you can present them all kinds of stuff. And it seems like those are the sorts of events that at first nobody wants to go, but once you go, you're like, oh, I'm really glad I came. And that seems like there could be real growth there.
Yeah.
This was not on my radar at all, but I think this is a really interesting one.
So you're thinking attendance as our data point at after-school activities?
That's what struck me, but I think the idea of doing some of these apps are things that you can also track,
Yeah.
because that's engagement too. I just don't know very much about that.
Yeah.
But it's
Just trying to
interesting.
figure out a good way to track it. That's what.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to track it.
Yeah, so attendance sheets, sign-in sheets,
Yeah.
that would be easy-ish to collect and accumulate and track from
As
year
long
to
as
year.
they're
and-
smaller events, like I can't imagine, how do you track like Besser's fall event that they just had?
Right.
Or the music, Christmas music concerts. I mean, so many of those are
Yep,
so packed that I feel like it'd be hard to take attendance necessarily, but.
yep.
The literacy nights, you can,
Parking on the lawn, no
Yeah.
standing room only.
Yeah.
well, literacy nights and math nights are another good way to do it, and a lot of the elementaries do it, in fact. I've seen it too, a lot of times the Title I teachers all organize them. And math night, literacy night, they've been pretty successful when I've gone to help out or attend it.
Yeah. So I think we could get a decent picture from the events that we do have, doing sign-in sheets and kind of get the baseline data and go from there. All right. Stewardship. So this one's a little void of numbers, I guess, because it is, we're learning how the budget, we never know from one year to the next what that looks like. But, the idea that the district will be fiscally responsible. And I changed the language because it threw out a percentage of a fund balance, but I just said in line with our board policy, and our board policy says 10% or more. So, again, don't want to necessarily lock us into a different number, but being fiscally responsible. And then reporting as we do. February, it'll probably be a little bit later now because the budget is so late, but, a mid-year and then an end-of-the-year budget report. And then, really the deliverables, the long-range facility planning, developing that plan in short order, and then monitoring and communicating that plan, essentially.
Where is that plan? I thought that was supposed to be kind of in our hands last month,
Which one?
the King Scott.
Yeah, so I was just chuckling about another one.
Okay, is there another one?
Because we got lots of spreadsheets, and I just had a conversation about it. A spreadsheet is very valuable to some, but not perhaps to others, and we're working on the plan that's valuable to others. So, King Scott has been working very diligently. I was just talking to Eric. This transportation thing is difficult. So they've been delayed in that they're diving deeper into transportation and not only what our current situation is, but how transportation might look with these scenarios that they're proposing, that they will be proposing to the board and the community. They didn't want to propose scenarios that are not feasible because of transportation. So I've had 2 meetings, with Lacey and them. I think she had a third one to really dive into everything transportation. So they've got scenarios, they're pretty much ready to go. They're just doing the fine tuning of what each room in the district is used for throughout the day, because that's a part of, building utilization rates is a part of their, plan. But at the same time, AMA and I have been we've got the SOAR partnership at Ella White, and we're just exploring some ideas around making some changes to Ella White potentially to support the SOAR program and some of the AMA staffing. And as that project was moving alongside the long-term plan, I asked that we come together and run it by the long-term facility plan to make sure that those two are as aligned as possible. So Eric's possibly going to take a tour with me Thursday at Ella White to kind of roll it out, at which point we would bring it to the board and say, this is maybe a year, 2 years, whatever it looks like for the SOAR room, but then also we'll be ready to present the long-term facility scenarios in November.
Yeah, my impression from Dave's updates were just sort of that they ran into things that they really kind of didn't expect, and I would say they're going above and beyond trying to solve these some of these issues and really, give us something that we can use. But it was a little unexpected that maybe there initially it wasn't on their radar that this was going to be a problem, and but they're looking at real stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I've had, like I said, 2 meetings with them, and there's a whole team of various people in King Scott, all trying to figure out this transportation situation that we've got. So I know that we're delayed in bringing it to the board, but we want it to be in as good a shape for the board and community before we brought it out. So I think that's the end of the examples I came up with. Or,
I think this is awesome. Like, this is, I mean, these are amazing goals to really, it's exciting.
good,
I think it's really exciting.
Appreciate
I think
that.
the only one would maybe be the fiscal health and transparency, like trying to figure out something there for that one. But overall, I think this is great.
Okay.
Make it more, yeah, it's hard. How do you make it more
Like
of a
something
SMART
more- Yeah.
goal when you
Yeah.
can't really put you don't want to put a true number to it, right? Like,
Yep. So this is back to the spreadsheet. So what I'm trying to bring something to the board that is kind of a plan. So we've got what we call the wish list. Well, let me back up. So Mary, prior to me, and during my time, has been working to identify, if the roof was put in year X, the spreadsheet shows that in year X plus 20 or 25, it's going to need to be replaced. So we have that mapped out at every building across the district for those kind of things. And then there are what we're now calling, and so it's a spreadsheet with 25 tabs on it. To me, that's not a plan, but I fully trust that Mary knows what that plan is, but I keep saying, but we got to be able to tell someone about it and make it manageable. So that's what we're working on. And the first thing that you'll really see out of that is the wish list, which is not the title I want it to be, but it's those things that we know would be really nice to get done, but they're not replacement of, this kind of thing and mechanicals and that. So, flagpoles across the district, the auditorium, we were just in there for PD today, and you can't see the person on the stage because there's no lighting, and the weight room, that's on there. And we've got a list of those kind of things where we would love to be able to say to the community, in the year 26-28, well, let me put it, 2020, in 2030, the district would be willing to put X million dollars towards a weight room. And if there are donors in the community that want that to happen sooner, or just at the same time, they then have, what they all come and ask us is, well, how much is the district willing to donate, put towards this project? Right now, our answer is, we don't have a plan, we don't have a budget for it. So we have this wish list over the next 3 to 5 years of, these are the projects that we have identified as a priority, and we will be putting this out to the board and the staff and everyone to get their prioritization. But we'll then have a 3 to 5 year plan of, these are the projects, and we believe we can commit this amount of money to these projects in this year. The real danger is when we get there and we don't have the money, and then everyone says, you backed out on your word. So we just want to, because we don't know. We don't know what the state is going to fund us from year to year. But to me, it's us telling the community, these are our priorities, these are what we would like to get done, and now how can we partner with the community to get those things done? Where did this start with? With quantifying? But like, when we've got that plan, you'll have something to work off of towards setting a goal.
It was spreadsheets is where you started that.
Yeah.
And I'm sensing where the black and white and the gray come into contrast here.
Yes.
Well, just looking at that, looking at the proposed goal, maybe the maintenance of the fund balance could be, because maintenance of your, an appropriate fund balance, that, I would say maintenance of something could be a goal to stay in a particular zone with that. But we could add other things to that perhaps, like you're suggesting, but I think that could be in there.
Okay.
No harm in that.
Yeah, and I think stewardship is about taking care of what we've currently got. But if we're making goals, I want it to be looking forward too, and kind of putting the vision of the district out there. Because we know, back to King Scott and the long-term facility plan, we've been declining enrollment for 50 years. This busing thing is a thing, and we've got to modernize. I think at one point it said something about modernizing the learning environment. So that's forward-looking, and
I was afraid for a second you were going to talk about modernizing the student transportation system and suggesting we have them delivered by Amazon drones or something.
Perhaps.
That would be really something.
Yeah.
Get picked up by your drone at your drone stop.
Yep.
Yeah, the more I learn about it, the more the busing problem really does seem, I wouldn't say insurmountable, but it's a major factor in trying to figure out the 600 square mile problem that we have. So I'd be very curious to see what they come up with.
Yeah.
King Scott.
Yeah, it really is very limiting. After-school programming is very difficult, and it's only available to those that have other transportation. And then driver shortages and all sorts of issues that go into it. And I came from a district that was 1.7 square miles, and they got the same dollar amount from the state as Alpena Public Schools does, and it's just not right.
Your whole district was less than 2 square miles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my former district,
Yeah.
95 schools. 95 schools. We went from the Potomac River to the Shenandoah Mountains. The whole county was under Prince William County
Yeah.
School District.
So what I would propose is that you spend some time going over this again. We've got the workshop to fine tune this further. And maybe all 5 are adopted at the regular meeting. Maybe some of them need to, more information, or we're not ready to adopt them. But, if we could adopt them in October and start, that'd be great.
That sounds reasonable to me, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate the conversation, everybody's participation today, because
Yeah.
we were, throwing around this question of, well, is this really going to be productive? Do we need to have this meeting? And then as we got talking about the nitty-gritty of the strategic planning and what we were hoping to accomplish this month, I thought, yeah, let's give it a shot. But this is really, really, really fun. I appreciate even Gemini's involvement in this, because this is, we just needed a springboard, and this has certainly done that, and then some.
Yep, I agree.
Move us forward, sir.
Okay.
All right, well.
Thank you all.
If there's no Nothing further on that. We'll conclude that portion of the meeting and pick it up in the workshop again. So, yeah, chew on this stuff, write down your thoughts, and, bring suggestions to the workshop, and we'll talk about it more. That brings us then to our citizens or delegations to address the board, public comment session. It's like it's dried up a little bit from earlier. Anybody? Public comment? Anyone?
Bueller.
Going once, going twice, public comment?
Yeah.
All right, it appears there is no public comment this evening. Then I would direct your attention to our advanced planning calendar. We have our workshop on the 20th, regular meeting the 27th, and then we're into November for those same sorts of items. And that concludes our agenda, at which point we may adjourn. So thank you all so much. Appreciate everything.